pitch first, and if we get it, then we'll panic, and then I'll come for this conference and I'll for help. So, the governor went to Morocco for this pitch, and when you're hosting the big global conferences, you have to get permission and endorsement from the president of your country, and His Excellency the President gave that endorsement, because in effect, he is the whole occasion happens to be in Kisumu. The conference is called the Afri-Cities Conference. It is held every 3 years in cities around Africa, expecting 10,000 people. I don't sleep at night, people, so you don't have to. So we're expecting 10,000 people into Kisumu in November 2021. And hence, we needed to create a brand, we needed to push ourselves, we need to be visible. And, you know, when the governor was going to that pitch, I reckon what clinched it, aside from His Excellency as an academician anyway, was the fact that he speaks the 3 European languages of French, English. So his pitch was in the 3 languages. Of course, Kenya won the pitch, and the president endorsed it. And so we have this massive conference. We're pushing the M.I.C.E agenda. We're saying, let's go for gold, and on its way we'll learn and host different events and just scale up. And when you bring in business tourists into a destination, we know we want to in that market. So that's our plan. So we're being strategic. As a minister in charge of tourism, the arts and sports, I'm very strategic about the how I do what I do, instead of a lot of tactical stuff, which is exciting too, but I've got to have a path. Kisumu hadn't built itself a positive image. It has the creative, but it's also, we like to express elections every 5 years, and we express ourselves very loudly, and sometimes it can be testing. So the whole spin was, if I can ensure, together with the governor, ensure that we're an economic, vibrant community and region, and that we showcase art, you can change that narrative, reshape how people perceive you. You know how it is. You can either dress beautifully or dress badly and people remember you. You can talk very well or talk badly and people remember you. You can rebrand. So that's what I'm trying to do in Kisumu. For us, we've seen regionally a lot of attention. This is catapulted specifically by the opening of the Kisumu port. Now, if you live in Kenya, you hopefully are aware that Kisumu is opening up its port. There is, it's been there, you know, the railway line came and stopped there at a place called Port Florence. Kisumu used to be called Port Florence. And there was a massive port over the years due to political sways. Now the president is working very actively. It's called the Handshake, the Building Bridges Initiative, and this is a key project for the national government to revitalize the region and the port. Now, what that does is it opens up the lake countries. We'll be hosting 5 heads of state. We're waiting to hear when, so that they can come: Rwanda, Democratic Republic of Congo, South Sudan, Uganda, Tanzania, and then Kenya. And again, that gives me an opportunity to promote my M.I.C.E space. Is this all making sense? Do I look like I have a plan? I'm hoping that I look like I have a plan. So with the opening of the port, we know it will generate revenue, business, and so the tourism sector has to be very attentive. I've got Grand Swiss Hotel here. Here we are. That's one of the big iconic in Kisumu. We're really serious about making sure that we market and promote ourselves in a positive way. Whilst in the past, tourists mainly frequented tourist hotspots and officially designated tourism attractions, what we're finding with the conferences that keep coming, I mean, hotels are busy in Kisumu. National conferences, international conferences, local conferences. A mix of cultures now. The international tourist comes into the region, at the lake, there's a fish. We're trying to share Cisco. We're working in partnership so that we can put up an 18-hole. And our niche there is the golf course actually takes you into the water along your, I don't play golf, but I can see the route that they've shaped. At a certain point where you have to get wet, you have to come out as you continue. to the 18th hole. So we're investing a lot in the infrastructure. Of course, the county government doesn't have all the money, the national government doesn't give you all the money, they don't have it either. And so we're reaching out to investors, local and international. I will leave this conference later today to go to China. Do they have money? So that is, anyway, I'm going to wrap up. I think at the end of the day, I'm trying to show very much.
A big round of applause for her to have more conversations, all right? And portfolio, when it comes to the hotel industry, he was actually telling me some of the hotels he's worked with. I think you mentioned it when you get here. So welcome Cosmas with a round of applause, even as he comes here. And also as we continue, the water that is on the table is for you. So please drink the water. Do not die of thirst and then say that we didn't give water, right? So please enjoy that water. Please Cosmas, if you may. Welcome. All right. As we continue, I'd also like to invite the lovely S.Marie. Please come. As she said, if I was a native speaker, I'd have said Stenofen, but now that I'm not, we won't. And also introduce the next panelist, Dominic Dewa. Please also join us. A round of applause for them. For those who are already seated and for Dominic even as he comes. And then I'll hand over to Dominic. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Damiano. As you heard, my name is Cosmas Kimanzi from the Strathmore University School of Tourism and Hospitality. And this session is actually your session as the audience, where we get to have a conversation, do amazing presentations since morning. And the beauty of this event, we have a lot of experience here in terms of what we've done in our various organizations. The questions did not get an opportunity to post your question. You have the opportunity to speak about that question live and ask the audience. For those of us who are sitting here who may have an experience about a question that may be asked, I would encourage you to feel free to answer the questions. One of the questions that I've seen in the platform, and that was quite interesting, was when I didn't know the answer, so I decided to ask Mr. Google. So Mr. Google told me the date, and I came to notice that the date coincides with my birthday, 18th of July. That's interesting, right? Thank you for that question. It helped me. Very good. Thank you very much for that remark. Okay, S.Marie.
Thank you, Cosmos. I think also just from my side, a big positive congratulations to the Minister. I mentioned in my presentation about the puzzle and that you need all the pieces in the puzzle. And Minister, you've touched on airlift, venues, hotels, and puzzle, and coming from a marketing PR background, promoting the destination to the relevant targeted audience, it can only be another big plus for Kenya as a country. So yeah, just also because.
Okay, S.Marie, now that you're holding the mic, there's a question here for you. What has ICA done to boost the competitive advantage and business opportunities for its members?
Thank you for the question. As an industry association, we give a platform to our members that again work in the association. One of the big benefits and reasons why companies join ICA is we've got a database of 11,500 potential association meetings. Now, and I always say to potential new members, as ICA, who are you targeting? You can't be everything to everybody. Is your destination more of an incentive destination? is your destination more of a conference destination with conference venues and hotels, as an example? So yeah, ICA as an industry association, we've got various events in Africa and globally. So again, as a member, some members just pay the membership fee to have the ICA logo on their website. Other members actively attend ICA events for various reasons. Is it for networking? Is it for education? We also targeted, like our annual conference is normally senior management. Then we've got the ICA Association Meetings program that's targeted at sales and marketing staff. And it's like any member of any association. Doesn't matter if it's the hopefully new soon-to-be Kenyan Association for Business Events. It's give and take. It's not a case of I've paid my membership fee and now my venue is going to be full all the time. So it's working together, and again, yeah, the spirit of Ubuntu together.
Thank you, Ismail. It's about collaborations. Back to the audience. Yes, please, you can give out the mic.
Thank you, and thank you as the Minister for Kiswahili. It was a great presentation, and we look forward to come to Kisumu. I'm Charles Kanye, and I'm MD Chairman Events. We provide tents, echo, and most of these big events are happening in Kenya. We've been behind. I have two questions. I think one is to Ms. Marie regarding the theme says basically events destination. How can we get Africa to be competitive? And one of the things I've come to learn is that we have also to look at the people who are involved in this, because we talked about the generation, the destination, we've talked about the transport, the hotels and all that. But what about the people? People, I find that if you look at business today, business is run by millennials. We went to school in the 90s. Our management, both Kotler, had a different way of managing. So there's a gap between the people who are running business today and the people who are the stakeholders, I can say, because of different ideology. Technology is coming. So how can we be able to bridge that gap, whereby we, as the, I can say now, the ones who are now leading and the people who are actually running the business, the millennials, who have a totally different way of looking at things. How can we bridge that gap? Because there's a gap there. Because millennials, their mind is 10 times ahead where we are. What we are doing at their age is totally different. So I find there's a gap there, and as we look at the destinations, the air, and all those aspects that make the MICE thing happen, we also have to look at the people and how we second question is that I'm a founder member of M.I.C.E. M.I.C.E is the Events Management Association of Kenya. And one of the things that we've come to experience is that events industry is huge. It can make an economy. And how does it help us in Kenya here create a strong association for events industry? Because if you go to any country, even if you cannot go practice even if you are a lawyer or to join that association. But here in Kenya, it's where you find people come, they find, oh, events is good, they go to China, bringing stuff. Some do it as a hobby. So we find that we have even brokers in the market. So does ICA have to be a member of ICA? Must you belong to a certain association? Or a country must have an association so that we need to create a fair play and a regulator in the market. So those are the two areas I would like to get response on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. So, Ismail, the question about bridging the gap and how we can actually go about forming the local associations.
You're really putting me on the spot here. With regards to your first question about youth, and again, ICA as an industry association specifically work within the association space, and only companies that are members that work within the association space will join. So for example, a leisure tour operator will never join ICA because we work with association conferences. Now we've got, one of our events is the Forum for Young Professionals that takes place annually before IBTM World, the trade show that happens in Barcelona. and it's specifically targeted. Two of the main criteria is you must be under 30 years with a minimum of 3 years experience in the industry. And then it's a whole educational program around the youngsters that want to get more involved in the association space. That again is only open for member companies to attend, if that more or less. Then you also get, and again it's easy to ask what are you going to do for me, but SACI, the Southern African Association for the Conference Industry, that your Kenyan Tourism Association, KABE, there's talk about the Kenya Association for Business Events. As a local association, we offer, with SACI, that's the South African Association, we do an event annually in the Western Cape for students that study at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. And it's fine to say the students must sit and listen, but with this event, the students actually organize their own event so that they get the practical training.
Thank you, Achi.
I'd also like to add to that, Charles. Yeah. There is this belief that the millennial is a special breed of something. They're not. You and I, when we were young, we were those things. Millennials, we just had a different word, of course. And I think I don't like to make millennials feel any more special than there are many here. So, you know, for me to get to this age, I was you once. My thing is that there must be the older, more experienced, perhaps the one with the financial wealth to organizations through, but there's always going to have to be the millennial. I use that word loosely. There's going to have to be young, because we have to, you know, we grow them. But also, if you're not listening to them, then you get left out. I mean, in any meeting where my team speak, really, I roll my eyes, thinking, what? That's not possible, in my head. But you've got what they say and how they think it should be. When the team was saying, Waziri, you're going to this M.I.C.E conference, I think we should come, we are the ones running the department. I was like, oh yeah, I think you should come. But maybe when I was younger, I wouldn't dare ask my boss. So I think they're just more, we have to work with them, and they want to work with us, and we've got to allow their ideas. Like you were saying just now, you have a conference where they actually do the whole planning. You allow them to do it because you learn too. So I don't really treat them as anything particularly special, because I still in my head think I'm a millennial, but I'm not. But we just bring on board their ideas. Theirs is a lot on the digital space. That's it. So if you're savvy in the digital space and you're working with them, then I think. Then the other one was about events packaging. Like I've just talked to you about the port opening. We've got 5 heads of states coming, the opening of the lake, the Great Lake countries coming back together to do cargo and passenger maritime transportation. So organizations like yourself, and I even know the person who you bought it from. I remember that name, Chermena. And congratulations to you. I think it's also coming to pitch to the counties. Don't sit in Nairobi with, if you're from Kenya, don't sit in Nairobi with Nairobi, because this thing is real. This 47 counties thing is alive and well. I mean, maybe we can exchange contacts. You come and you make Nyongo and myself, and then you know that we're hosting Afri-Cities. We'll be looking for a lot of the people in this room to come internationally and locally, to come and say to us, we've got 10,000 people. You are government, you don't know how to do it, let's do it for you. Because at the moment they seem to think that Archie will pull it off. I will not be my boss and the team. They seem to think we'll pull it off. They're experts here. So come, diversify. This devolution is real. Come out, come and talk to us. And I do know that particularly my governor is very, very au fait and very open to all these opportunities. So I would say don't stay in Nairobi, come out.
Okay, Archie now is still holding the mic. I can ask you some 3 questions here. There's a question about brand ambassadors, and the question that came through is that we have appointed brand ambassadors in the past, but in terms of outcomes and output, they don't seem to have done much. That is one question. Then it is a fact that African cities are becoming tourism hotspots, and they are at the moment all over the world. And The question here is, every city has its own competitive advantage.
Brand ambassadors make a lot of sense. Sometimes it doesn't, like in government. I don't particularly see what a brand ambassador can do that I can't do. So I choose to say, I am the minister in that government, I am promoting and marketing that destination. So in a way, I then become that brand ambassador. So it is for you to decide, and you've got to check. You can pay somebody $1 million, but what's your... So I would say you look at your sector and you decide, do they add value, or can you do it yourself? And if you can't, is there a specific individual that can be tied to your product and it makes sense? You can't put out somebody totally different to come and market. I can't put out, we're asking how do different regions.
How can these cities use their competitive advantage in terms of what they have to enhance the numbers?
Right. For us, I used the example that I was presenting on was, so I come into the region as the minister. I've been out of the country for so long, but of course coming on holiday, but now I've got a job to do. And then I would ask my department, so who are we? Who is Kisumu? But when you're you'll say the most beautiful things about a place. And I'm an outsider. But then I say, let me get qualitative and quantitative research done. Get the data. So we hired an advertising agency, again, because of my communication. They do a lot of research. And they go out and they ask different categories of people. They ask the local residents in Kisumu, what do you think about Kisumu and what do you want? They ask the regional audiences, these are the counties that surround the lake, what do you think about Kisumu and what do you want? They asked nationally, Kisumu and what do you want? And then the diaspora, Kenyans living outside the country, same too, because that isn't there. The arts, how am I going to do that if I don't have this infrastructure? So then government does its part to put up an amphitheater. So that is coming. So we found that synergistic across all those categories. We then found out that they are known as a political hotbed, so that was consistent. But then when we asked the question, what do they want? What do these different categories of people want? The locals want economic empowerment. The region wants economic empowerment. The nation wants peace and quiet, because I said every 5 years we kind of show up. And internationally they are thinking, well, you've got that beautiful lake, can't we come and enjoy it? Can we have water sports? Can we trade with the different landlocked countries? So that came out, and that informed what we're now trying to do. Because now I've got the data, I can go back to the cabinet and say, this is why I want a M.I.C.E department, because that has to be funded and budgeted and approved. This is why I want to ensure that we push them. But now we've won, I actually need money for a convention center. I'd like to have a FIFA accredited football stadium. I'd like. So I do know that tourism drives traffic. And when you've got human beings coming in and revenue coming in, then the rest of the thing comes to today. The Kenyan National...
After the come up with not only the beach as a value product, other products that will make or will prolong stay of tourism within the country. Right? If our stand, the Tourism Finance Corporation, you see we have Kenya investment opportunities that exist. You have heard about that 2 counties. And you see what
you have questions for you, so I'll come to you. So to the audience, your questions please, so many of them. Please pass the mic to kindly make the question direct. Please address it to any of the 3 participants.
About tourism. Just to give you an idea of the size of facilities, you talk about the conventions bureau that was good afternoon. I was going to respond to his comment about the human development. So I just wanted to comment on that fitting into Kisumu. My name is Mlema Mumba. Tomorrow on the human capital issues around M.I.C.E. So in response to his question, I think when we're talking about developing the sector or developing our district, we have an industry that is 80% of talent. So most of us started, it was a nice thing to do. We've grown over the years. I'm still a millennial at heart. Do not ask me how old I am. But yeah, we've gone through the motions from being the young people that were running around to the old people that get tired after one job. But what we need to look at now is our competitiveness is highly dependent on our people, the skills that they possess. Because if you put up a facility, you're targeting a 2021 event. Beyond 2021, what is going to happen to that facility? You need to have the skills that are going to still utilize the facility. So what skills are actually needed? So I don't know much about Kenya. I will touch on it in my presentation tomorrow. But the industry itself has set certain learning standards, certain skill standards that are required, that most of our learning. So it's a question of professional versus academic, designation versus. So you as Kisumu, rather than going to, and all the other destinations, rather than reinventing the world by let's start a program, program. What is it that is there already? What is the global standard used to benchmark, and then send people for the next 3 years as you build your facilities, use that period to actually develop the skill set.
Thank you, Bulema, for that remark. Geoffrey, I saw your hand up. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. My name is Geoffrey Manyara with UNECA. History. I think in her presentation she said that as of 2018, Africa hosted 413 meetings. I think it's a major concern because there's hardly 0.0 something percent of the meetings that came to Africa. And the reason I raise this question is that we are working in the African continent and we are facing the same challenge. And we're trying to push for regional tourism because we like to see 80% of the tourism arrivals coming from Africa. I'm just wondering, is there room for intra-regional collaboration, for example? You see, like in the case of incentives, is there a possibility that to encourage businesses not to just think of holding their meetings domestically, but just think maybe to the regional countries and so forth? And I think that's an opportunity. I think it's just something that could be explored. My second question is the ECAS ranking. I'm a bit, and the reason I'm saying that is that if you look at the Kenyan market, to me, it's a very vibrant market. Most of the hotels are sustained by meetings. I think 80% of business locally comes from the domestic market. Now, this is a story that is not told, because if you're talking to investors, what they'll look at the ECAS ranking, but they forget that there is something that actually drives. If you go to Naivasha, for example, this is what you don't get in Rwanda. You only get meetings in Kigali, you don't get meetings outside Rwanda and so forth, but we see this was driving Kisumu and so forth. I think, how to reconcile that? I think the question, so that ECAS does not, because even the convention bureaus, their focus is on promoting international meetings, not even domestic. A lot of resources don't see the convention bureaus trying to promote. Thanks.
Thank you. So please take note. So we listened to all the questions. I've got only 10 minutes remaining. So that there was a hand, okay, there was Francis on the other side, the lady. Can you please pass the mic? Please next door so that we can actually listen. Yeah.
Thank you so much. My name is Francis. I'm the founder of a company called Torex, and we are basically technology. As Marie talked about the issue of not being able to get the statistics, the data, when you're doing your research. And this is a very critical concern to me, and I think also to Africa, because week, United Nations launched their digital economy report, and it's so sad that percent of the digital geography is actually in 2 countries globally, which is US and China, taking a whole 90%. Europe and Africa and the rest of the world is just taking the rest of the 10%. So, and why the question is here we have not our data sets. As Maria talking about 10,000 meetings, and that is probably somewhere in a website or a spreadsheet or something, but in a structured way where if anybody needs that data can actually be able to plug in and our beautiful minister, you've talked so much beautiful things about Kisumu, but that is serious data economy that Kisumu can be able to tap from. But where is this data? Is it in a brochure? Is it in a spreadsheet somewhere? Is it in, where is this data? Because that is the question we need to ask ourselves as Africa. We have so much. My friend Manyara has just talked about the issue of meetings happening here in this country. Right now, almost like all the hotels in Nairobi have a kind of a meeting taking place, but is that data captured? When it's captured, where does it fall? So we need to take advantage of that data, and we have rolled out a program called Tourism Technology Sensitization Program for Africa, where we actually educate individual companies and people to actually be able to know how do you take advantage of the data that you have in the counties, in the associations, in the government parastatals. We have had meetings with a couple of them, even TFC. The issue here is challenging all of us, and especially the panel that is talking about reaping the economic and social benefit, to actually take advantage of those data. Because the solutions are there, you have the data, but it's not captured, it's not integratable to any platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis, for that long question. So last, make it short. I have less than 6 minutes because. Okay.
This question is to you, Archie. My name is Doris Parsons, and I am a PCO based in Tanzania and Rwanda. So thanks to me for having this event. It's something that we really need. My question to you, Archie, you're doing a great job for Kisumu. You need to market Kisumu as a destination. They wake up and start bringing the conferences and events to Kisumu. Depending on what your infrastructure is like, that will determine the numbers that are coming through. Now, what are you doing to put in place the workforce that is actually going to service these conferences and events that are coming through? Because if the local capacity is not up to the global standards, they will bring their events or conferences or congresses or whatever they bring, and they will say we're bringing someone from wherever it is that we're from to service. In which case, your local is out. We're finding this a lot, and as I say, we're a professional conference organizer, but we've had to really fight to learn to get the skills that we need to get, which is why we've moved to another country in order to be able to get the work. But we still find that we're having to compete with other PCOs from Europe, from America. You're thinking, you can't come from America and come and manage a conference in Kisumu. So what do you have in place, maybe perhaps to upskill, the talent that is there? Because your regular event manager is not going to be able to handle the kind of...
All right, thank you so much. In 5 minutes. So Dominic, two questions for you. You can try and put them together in a minute or two. There's a question about the Vision 2030, which is Kenya's development agenda. And in the Vision 2030, it is projected that tourism, especially MICE, would contribute around 10% per annum to help the country achieve this objective. Where are we on that? Then in the Tourism Act of 2011, I know the mandate of TFC was expanded, and I know you tried to look into issues of building capacity and issues of enhanced financing. Maybe you can share with the people in the room how far you've done in terms of ensuring that we have the required capacity through financing. So we have only 5 minutes. I don't know how you're going to share them. So I start with you, Dominic.
Thank you. In terms of Vision 2030, we have said that the main subsector has been delivered as one of each product. I would say that what I presented here about the Mombasa International Convention Center, the Lake Victoria International Convention Center, that is the progress as you are talking. Because as I say, like the Mombasa International Convention Center, already have a feasibility study by IFC, that is International Finance Corporation of the World Bank, who have given us what are the figures look like, the magic thematic and actual army designs. And we are saying that within the next 3, 4, 5 years, we need to have it ongoing. The other one we have now conceptualizing is the Victoria. Because one, the government may not have land, and therefore it will be utilizing its own sites to jumpstart the MICE sector before rolling to the other sectors. And that's why we are saying that I'll come to the issue of the National Convention Bureau. Yeah, it is, I'm not sure whether it has been established now, because it was still being, the legislation was being drafted, but it will be domiciled at the Ministry of Tourism. And I think we need to get more information on that. But as far as I'm concerned, I think it has not yet been established. But for the information, if you have any investment in the convention center, you can still dig up and we are looking for people to finance our university and international convention center. Right? In terms of the Tourism Act, yes, it expanded our mandate by increasing, that's mean we finance the SMEs. All right. As we are talking, we are really in meeting. And if you see our portfolio, for example, we have split the portfolio that percent will be aligned to, it will be to SMEs. And even we have come up with product of community-based products. That means we need to go down to the community and finance them. In terms of attracting the MICE tourism, like our friend asked about how can we make the meeting more. One thing you should understand that the MICE cannot attract MICE if we don't have facilities. The backbone is the facilities, right? The incentives, the government has come up with incentives. If you have come up with the conference facilities, the incentives provided for in the Finance Act or Finance Bill. That means you come up with your things you want to put, and if there are any elements that you want to import, you just have to, you go to Tourism Regulatory Authority who are mandated to give you exemption. That means by the time you import, already you have gotten an exemption from KRA, and those will be duty-free. Those are the incentives that we have facilities which can attract MICE business. All right.
Yes, Marie.
I'm going to start with Francis. With regards to statistics, and again I'm speaking from an ICA perspective, people when they present use ICA stats, they don't always mention the criteria. So the criteria is important. It's statistics for one specific sector. It doesn't give you the overall picture of MICE business to a destination. Also, our report is an annual report where we rank cities and countries. It is a public, it's available to the public. We first send it out to members and then a month later we send it to, so even if there's, it's available on our website, or I could just send it to anybody that's interested. But I think it's, an important thing about stats is you really need to understand the statistics, because it's easy to throw around numbers, but what is the relevant detail in the numbers that you mentioned, if that answers. And then Jeffrey, a little bit again touching on the criteria, 413 in Africa. There is a misperception that the 413 is predominantly international conferences. Of the 415, you're probably looking at about 60% international and 40% regional conferences. And again, going to mention convention bureaus. Globally, Africa is a much younger continent focusing on MICE business. The Vienna Convention Bureau is about 55 years old. They've been focusing on business events with a destination for that long. The oldest convention bureau in Africa is the Cape Town Convention Bureau, 18 years old. Then outside South Africa, the next convention bureau, as I mentioned, 4 years old. So it's all about governments understanding the potential and then setting up a convention bureau, how it's supposed to work globally. Because a convention bureau is not it's funded by government to promote the destination. Just sitting, listening here, I heard there were advertisements in the newspaper for companies to tender on how to set up a convention bureau. That's normally not how it works. Most of the time you get a consultant that has worked in the convention bureau space, because you don't want to set up a bureau and fail before you've even started. It's going to be money wasted completely. And unfortunately, less business for the destination, focusing on business events.
Thank you, Ms. Mani. Achi?
Okay, I will tackle a few. But let me begin by saying that when I took the job in January last year, I took the role of being the minister in Kisumu, but I was coming to Kenya after the long period away, having lived the expatriate life, where all I did for 25 years was conference, everywhere. Traveled around the world, I've seen it, I've enjoyed it, I am very comfortable as a business tourist, so that's how I've seen a lot of the world, going for conferences and then touring. So one of the things I did was take on the role, or apply for the role, and be elected as the chairman of the 47 Ministers of Tourism and Wildlife in Kenya. Now, very specifically, what was irking me was the fact that through the 25 years away, Kenya, when I first left, was sitting at the precipice of being a global or a fantastic African destination. We've got the Lion and the Mara, we've got the warm waters of the Indian Ocean, and we have Mount Kenya. That was our offering. That was it. So taking on the role of the chairman and meeting my 47 colleagues, the ministers in the different counties, because Kenya is now devolved. Please, I say it again, don't focus on Nairobi only. Each government is operating as it wishes, within the laws of government. It is pushing its own agenda. So yours is to recognize, I now have people to talk to, 47 governors, 47 ministers. Going back to the role as the national chair, we then had at the Pan-African Nairobi, all the 47 and our deputies who are chief officers are technical experts in tourism. Mine is sitting at the back there, Thomas Onko, and they understand, they have studied tourism, they understand the laws, the regulations, they work with the national bodies like Tourism Finance Corporation. They understand this job. They sit there as government. We are private sector before I joined. Now, private sector is very afraid of government because we've got this perception, that government is this thing. I still have that perception, but I'm in it now, so I have to be a bit nicer. But it is a thing. They've got all the data, they've got all the knowledge, but they don't know how to come to you, because they don't have to. You have to go to them. That's the difference. So, we then had the 3-day conference, and at the end of it, we met the cabinet secretary who heads tourism and wildlife nationally, Honorable Najib Balala. And he came to the closing, and we said to him, this is why Kenya's numbers are declining, because you continue to offer these 3 beautiful things, the Lion in the Mara, the Mount Kenya, and the Indian Ocean, the warm Indian Ocean, Mombasa, Malindi, etc. However, the rest of the world has moved on. Angola has passed us, Botswana, Namibia, Mozambique, these countries that we as Kenyans thought, really, that ain't gonna happen. And so our standing as a substantive destination in Africa for tourism. We then talked to the cabinet secretary, we call him the CS. We talked to the CS and said, you need to allow Kenya Tourism Board, Tourism Research Institute, Tourism Finance Corporation, and TRA, there are so many. They need to come out into the counties, and they need to capacity build. They need to tell us, when we're sitting in our regions, what does Dominic do? And what does this other guy do? And what does this other guy do? And what, build capacity, because now Kenya is devolved. And that's what has been going on, and the CS has been fantastic. Each of these organizations comes out to the region. So in Kisumu, they would look after the Lake Region Economic Block. They come and do training. They come and build products. They come and build capacity. One of the products we were talking about was M.I.C.E. The world is a convention conveyor belt. People move around for conferences and we haven't addressed it. So for you in the private sector, in the MICE space, this is new. You're hearing the statistics. Rwanda is 4 years old and South Africa is?
18.
Cape Town is 18. Kenya is maybe a year, 2, I don't know, but you're aggressive and you're there, but you're not interacting with government. Not that I blame you, but you have to. You have to interact with government. Recently, one of the things I said in that meeting in February last year was, CS, I don't know how many people come into Kenya. You give me this ballpark figure of X number per year, but I don't know where they go once they land into Kenya. How many go to the Mara? How many go to Mombasa, Malindi, Kilifi, Kisumu? I want the statistics broken down. Then I can justify, as an individual in a region, to ask the cabinet for more funding, for more money for capacity building, etc. Statistics were not there. This institution existed, the Tourism Research Institute. August 13th, they came and did a fantastic presentation, the cabinet secretary was there, and they clearly told us now what they are planning to do. They are going out to give us data. Somebody asked a question about data. Francis, was it? Yeah, Francis. That was the frustration. You sit there and you have to give data to the cabinet. You don't have it. So now TRA will be working on, and it's a whole topic in itself, but thank goodness, I want to know how many people flew into Kisumu. I want to know as the national for the Tubog Cultural Festival in Turkana. I want to know how many people went to the Camel Derby, by road, by flight, by rail. So that's coming. It takes time, no? But also, Kenya has recognized that it fell off a little bit. It's picked up for sure, in terms of being the prime #1 tourism destination. The last was a question lady from Tanzania about the workforce and capacity building. Remember I said in my speech, I have come here to look for help. And I have come here to invite you to come to us, to say, Governor and your cabinet, we've heard you're hosting 10,000 people. You don't have a clue how to do it. We do. Can we work with you? That's what you're going to do. That's why these forums are great, when government gets to interact with private sector. It will help also your conversation about professional. We don't know. Maybe we're going to Strathmore to learn. I don't know. I don't know. And that's why I'm here. How am I going to get my team to continue when Unwell go on and MICE is well and up and running, not just in Kisumu, in Kenya? Where do we go to learn it? So those are the questions that we pose as a government to the national minister. And I keep saying, please, Kezi and anybody in this global space, this is new in Kenya, get hold of it. People like Rwanda, come to us directly, the Rwandan government. We want to host you. We have our fantastic convention center. Rwanda is smaller, but very impactful. So we can do the same. I just need private sector to come and engage with government.
Thank you, Achi. I think we have to put this amazing conversation to an end. We are 12 minutes past our allocated time. It's been amazing to discuss about MICE and how we can actually boost our competitive advantage. This is not the end of the conversation. We are here for 3 days. Some of the panelists will be here with us. So in case you did not get a chance to ask about something that was very important to you, we can still continue that conversation outside this platform. And again, we have our online platform where you can actually put your questions. And again, the wall at the back, I'm told we can actually write something on it. We can actually pick it up and make sure that we channel that to the right persons. It was amazing. Thank you very much, Dominic from Tourism Finance. Yes, Marie.
A bigger round of applause for our panelists, Cosmas, for taking us through that. Brilliant. Wow, was that worthwhile? Yes? Now, I'd like us to do something. I don't know if you've been interacting on our social media. Have we been doing that? Even as the questions have been going on? All right. Now, guys look a bit tired. So, this is what I want us to do, all right? The table where you're seated, all right? Take out your phones and take a photo of the people you're seated with. Selfie moment. Yeah, let's loosen up a bit. Yeah. So everyone at that table needs to smile. If they don't smile, don't click.
It's coming.
Yes, take it as it is. Take the photos as they are, just as they are. All right. Brilliant. Please feel free to post it on our handles. And the hashtag is GSM 2019 and hashtag Business Events Africa. Okay, I just ask that you take one selfie. Just one. One selfie only. All right? Brilliant. Okay. Okay, these one selfies are becoming one too many. Okay, thank you so much for that. You guys are really enjoying themselves a bit too much, eh? Okay, we want to go for lunch, but just before we get to moving out of the hall for lunch, there are a few things I'd like us to take note of which a link will be posted either now or when we come back from lunch. It is called the event app, and what happens in that app once you log in, you're able to schedule meetings with the people that you meet here. Okay, that table back there, those phones. You guys have enjoyed that? Okay. Don't worry, I'll give you more sessions so that you take more selfies. That was nice, eh? Okay. So, once you've posted that, there's an app that a link will be sent. It will be portrayed, it will be displayed right here, either now, I don't know if it's ready. Not yet. The link will be set up. Now what you do is download that. What that app does is it connects people who are in the events industry. And then you're able to see who is there, and in case probably you want to have a chat with Honorable Archie, you're able to just schedule a meeting through the app. If you want to know more about what Esmarie does, you're able to just look through her profile and also schedule a meetup. Sounds like a good idea. So you can do that today, then you can schedule meetups for tomorrow. Now, because tomorrow morning we'll not have signing up because we already signed up, that morning session can be a session where you now set up a meeting and then come and actually do your meetings right here, right? Sounds like a good idea? Yeah, we got your back, so do not worry. Again, feel free to post the photos that you've taken using the hashtag GSM 2019 and the hashtag Business Events Africa. Now, I'd like us to all take a group photo. Is that okay? Is that fine? As we take, I know my guys are clearing up the stage, so once they do that, our team from Versatile, please. Now, if I were you, I would be, if I need to powder my nose, I'd be doing it right now. If I need to, clean my glasses, I'd be doing that right now, straighten, so that we can all come here the next few minutes and take a very nice. Brilliant. All right. Versatile are on set. They are ready for us. So far, so good. So far, so good. Yeah? Now, lunch will be served at Harvest Restaurant. Harvest Restaurant is on the second floor, and the ushers who will be at the door to my extreme left will be able to guide us to where Harvest Restaurant is. So. But before we go to lunch, let us all come up here and take a photo. So we'll start with our CEO, Kezi. Please come with Honorable Alai Achi, as well as our panelist, Cosmos. Please come as well. All our plenary speakers. And then now the rest of us come. We will all fit somehow. Right? Versatile guys are ready. Please come. to work with our speakers, plenary speakers that have been here. We'll be able to see him so that he can direct us to where lunch will be served. And then we have Sheena. Sheena, where are you? Please come closer so that we can see you. Right? Brilliant. This is Sheena. She will be right outside at the info desk. She will be able to direct the rest of us. So Brian will handle all our plenary speakers and our moderators and all of us who are attending. You are now free for lunch. We exit through the door on the left. Welcome one and all. We'll be back here at 2 p.m. so that we continue.
That's 1996 to 2010. Yeah? Okay, so statistically, your attention span is 8 seconds. That's why websites are designed the way they are. Is if after you don't catch, what was your name? M.I.C.E. If you don't catch M.I.C.E.'s attention after 8 seconds, she's... So, this is not the subject, but for all our marketing and all our stuff, it's important stuff to keep in mind. I've also done a presentation which sums up everything I tell people to never do. First of all, PowerPoint. So it's a PowerPoint presentation. And each PowerPoint slide should have lines, and there's lots of lines. So it's exactly the contrary. But the subject is so important, and we have so little time, and I didn't think that it was to do fancy stuff with song and dances, that it's good and professional. The overview is that in sustainability, because that's what we're going to talk about, is sustainable practices in M.I.C.E. in Africa specifically. And we believe that Africa is absolutely at a tipping point where it has the opportunity to show the way. Then we'll look at, which is our subject, what does this have to do with M.I.C.E. event planning? And let's get on with it. So, I'm sure some of you, or if not all of you, have seen the ISO 20121 rule about sustainable event management. You know ISO, everyone? ISO, yeah. Which ambition to do things right, but to make mistakes the same way every time. So this ISO rule, probably don't need to be bothered to read through it, but it's a very ambitious statement. Like, I'm not knocking anything or criticizing anything, because every little drop helps, and it's a... The question is, does it really apply to us, and how do we implement it in our daily businesses? That's the real question. This is the graph of the stakeholders in meetings and events sustainability. Government, destination, meeting and events industry, some people from the government, distinguished gentlemen, associations, and educational institutions. Again, this is true. Here, it is basically based on the Rule 20121 is based on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that the United Nations has set out, that Kenya has, in some cases, very successfully implemented, as a matter of fact. But, again, and as we'll discuss it later, when you're sitting behind your PC or your Mac designing a program for a client, and the phone is ringing and you're late with answering emails and stuff, you don't necessarily have the 17 Sustainable Development Goals at your forefront, although they're true. Then there's another thing that was put up, which is called the GDS Index. So these people, essentially Scandinavian cities, plus MCI, the agency that you know, I'm sure, plus other people. Very interesting initiative, because their ambition was to see how can that's a funny noise. Oh, there we go. Wait a bit, you think, or something? Anyway, their ambition was to say, okay, all fantastic, how do we measure them? How do we measure them, and how do we classify places that are sustainable or not? But again, it's pretty, and this is a disgrace between you and I, frankly. But I mean, it shows the way, and we've discussed the fact that M.I.C.E is only beginning, is international M.I.C.E. It's very true, the gentleman who said that there's a lot of African meetings all the time. But I mean, I found this, apart from, I found it fascinating to see, and I find it disconnected, impractical, and a bit too ambitious for us daily business, trying to make a living. So I'm here to share perspective. We believe at Motivation Africa that African destinations can show the way to practical, grassroots, applicable, sustainable and profitable, because that's what makes the world go around, sustainable. Just a quick word on what Motivation Africa is. We have a conference and incentive agency in Switzerland since 1991. And we thought, after that many years in business, with the booming of the business that we expect in Africa, that we wanted to be part of that. And we have put together, for the time being, a modest but professional, I mean, in the developed stuff you hear, sustainable, organic, water conservation, recycling, repairing rather than throwing away, fair trade, local, solar power, gluten-free. You hear this, less pesticides or not, you hear this all the time. So how does Africa talking gluten-free, all you, when I say you, I mean us in Africa, but all we do, teff, amaranth, millet, corn, cassava, you know, wheat is not the staple. Recycling and repairing, you all know from the talent here for repairing and recycling stuff is unbelievable. Okay, and it's happened to me to have a Land Cruiser that was flattened, I mean flat. In 3 weeks, they made it new again. In Europe or in America, that thing would have been thrown away in 2 minutes. It's an incredible talent, and that talent is widespread to educated, less educated, uneducated people. It is all over the place. Water and energy conservation. People here have techniques that they've developed over the for water conservation. Apart from, and that's the subject of the problem of cooking in where still it's in Kenya, for example, it's wood. So electricity doesn't get to them. So. Again here, organic farming, that's what people have been doing forever, until big companies convinced. So, again, here one's been used to that forever, because the transportation was so difficult that you had to buy locally. So, the good news is that Africa is in. Africa, you get the haute couture designer Dior has taken for their 2020 collection with fabrics from Côte d'Ivoire, the wax fabrics. This has been hugely controversial because a lot of people in Africa have said, you're stealing our design that we've been wearing for hundreds of years, a haute couture collection. Technically it's true, but the good news is the design, it spreads the word. If Dior, I would tend to think that it's, so that's good news. With the young generation like the world, but be able to close those factories, to find new systems. People had invested heavily in that. They said, oh, we don't want to change Switzerland. So now our core topic, which is eco-certified clean ice business and that stuff. But to satisfy the needs of to satisfy their needs. We from free perspective. In China, Again, it's not easy, it's just a fact. 70% of electricity is generated through coal power plants. And they're building nasty people because they have to power their economy. And if they don't power their affairs, at least the trip. Better Table Mountain and everything. That's what people remembered being by the local kids. 7,000 tell the story of Mr. Morocco. To tell these stories so that people say, okay, it's going to cost a couple $100 more, and bring on everyone on board. We can't do it alone. No one can. So on the long term, sustainable MICE programs will be the only way to go because people will ask for them. And we believe that they're a unique selling proposition for African destinations, as has been already discussed this morning. So it's now time for us stakeholders to sit together, probably using this thing as a score to choose from, and come up with a simple set of rules. There's no point producing a simple set of rules that we can implement. I would hope a label so that we are recognized, and we in Motivation Africa would like to do that with you. So to sum up, African sustainability is a tremendous asset. We must integrate that culture in MICE program design. You and us, we have a key role to play. Now is the window, and we need simple grassroots guidance. If we don't do that, you've all seen this young Swedish girl going around talking about Greta Thunberg, I think she's called. She's 16. Have you seen her? Mm-hmm. Yeah. If we don't act now, in the corner, Generation Z, her grandchildren will not live. I mean, that's the fact. And we can't. We can do it.
Thank you for that. Now, I'd like to welcome the next session speaker, but to prepare for that, I'd like to tell you that using our hashtag GMS 2019 and 2019 calendar year 2019, as well as Events Africa. We also have an app, all right? Now this app is known as the Event Bank. We shall be displaying that link shortly so that you're able to follow the link. Click on the link. What that it will take you directly to the Play Store or the iOS Store, where you can be able to download the app. Once you download the app, you've signed in. Please, if you've met someone that you want to have a bit more connect with, feel free to do that through the app. And tomorrow morning, before we start the first plenary session, you'll have enough time to just come in, meet with that person, exchange ideas, and even grow your network. Sawa sawa? Sawa sawa? Very nice, very, very nice. Is there anything that has been said so far that is pressing someone? I'll give you a minute. All right. As you think about it, remember the sticky notes on your tables. Please write your questions, your queries on those notes, and then stick them right behind there, especially where you have found or you have an idea of a solution or a challenge that we are facing in the MICE industry. Then because we are stakeholders in this room, we'll be able to take it up, put our ideas together, put our resources together, and be able to execute on that. Now, I mentioned about the we have that are made from 100% recycled newspapers, right? and I promised you we'll be meeting someone from that team. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome this gentleman. He is the CEO or Momo Group Kenya, and he goes by the name Bob Khalili. Let's welcome Bob even as he comes with a round of applause. Bob, I know will be asked to be, is it 100% newspaper? Like, what do you do? Probably we can tackle that in the Q&A, but for now, karibu sana.
Okay, it is thank you. It is a pleasure standing in front of you, the last speaker. It's a privilege. And I am supporting the economic value of sustainable events management. But I'm going to I will take you through my journey in sustainability as I bring that concept to forth. Now, how I came into the sustainability sector was purely accidental. And I honor the person who inducted me. He's seated right there. His name is Mahmoud Omar. And he's the actual CEO. He is the actual CEO. And our journey started very funny, actually in a very interesting manner. We are very passionate about health and wellness. So one day I happened to be, and he also happened to be in the gym, and it was at a very odd hour in the morning hours. Simple question. That is, mind you, after over a year of us meeting each other, and we never talked. He asked me a very simple question. Why are you not at work? And I told him, I don't work for anyone, I pay myself. So I get to decide the time I go to work. And I asked him the same question. Why are you not at work? And he told me a very simple answer. I have this startup. I've been trying for the last 2 years to pick it up, and it is not working. I gave him a bit of the solutions. I thought it would work. And that is how we went into further discussion. And the resulting outcome of that discussion is the pencil on your table. That is the outcome of that discussion. And we became partners. Now we are co-founders. He's the CEO. I'm the Chief Strategy and Sustainability Officer for that company. The journey I went on. This is the concept I used in the company because I was trying to relate it in strategic angle. Now, look at a system. Anything that has been integrated to function made up of different parts is a system. This is even concepts. And sustainability was the sustainability is this. To look at the pencil in a different context. Have that. We call it the points of parity. So if this pencil market as a pencil, it will have been trouble. Differentiation. We went back into the drawing board and did something different. Instead of the expected and the generic, I had something called the augmented value. What additional benefit
it was a steep learning curve for us, and eventually the realization that we're circular economy. Most of what we are doing on the site as exhibition stand builders is aligned to a linear economy, and then we have to understand what do we have to do. Why should we not be following a linear approach? This is very simplistic. You take things out of the environment, you make something of it, at the end of the line it gets disposed, it goes invariably into waste. Putting this into a better perspective, I enjoy pictures, hence my love of painting, and the linear economy, take, make, use and waste, we end up with exactly that, one of these big waste bins full of rubbish. In the recycling economy, where most of us are now, and what we are talking about has been around for a long time, we know about the ban of single-use plastics and things like that, where we're speaking, but we are controlling it. We are ever still only recycling about 20% of the waste that is in the world. So if you're producing 85 million PET bottles a year, or in the UK, 80%, where are the rest of them going to? And it's a similar, a little bit later on, about materials. To put into legs, to stay seated, and those three things are economic, environmental and social. And you've just heard Bob speaking about how those all impact on each other. And if you take one of them out, you lose everything. And if you go and look at the latest sort of talks and discussions around the triple bottom line, there's a whole list of things: water usage, banning plastic. They're all great, they're all contributing to. I used something that was relevant and was new. Things like plastic, MDF. I don't know if everyone knows what MDF is, medium density fiberboard. I'll explain a little bit later on for those that don't know. These things are all part of what makes up a very wasteful carbon footprint. And there's why. I'm going to give you a little video clip of a simple thing like a fabric banner. We might see a fabric banner, and a lot of people actually tout a fabric banner as greening. It is a lot better than some of the other options. Study what is it in fact behind the scenes, start speaking about things like greenwashing. So it should be on here. Your system's not syncing with mine, you're on quick time. I can show you the videos afterwards, but essentially you're talking about banners are made of polyester. Polyester, if you take polyester and you break it down, eventually becomes microfibers going to the environment, and they are there forever. It comes back to you in the if you've got the water. If you take that literally and you go and look at the ice cap, it's melting. It's melting, it's causing a problem. It's the stuff below the surface that's melting, it's giving us the issues. Sustainable materials, we can look at how to combat this, and it is actually critical that we go over to something that's sustainable, that we don't waste products into the environment. You have to look at the structure of your stands, the materials that you're using, not only for the but for the finishing. It goes into absolutely everything that you're using on site. We don't take brochures to site anymore because it's a waste, and yet we put up big over our panels. We need to think of the material. You can cascade material down into legacy projects afterwards, and there can be reuse of a recycled material before it actually gets to the repulping or the reuse. Usable stage. Staff, those factors later on, because I think a lot of it was covered. Transport is key. Bulky things to site. Obviously, the carbon footprint is going to be a lot bigger than if you're taking something that's a lot smaller and a lot lightweight. Then, of course, the origin of the material, where does it go back to? besides the fact that it's in a container and it is still a toxic product. Give you an example of some stands. We'll stand on the bottom, material called Zanita, which also it's completely done in sustainable material. That stand can be set up in about an hour, like a custom. The same effect. You can in fact gain a lot more because you don't have material there. So we didn't cut down a tree to pull the timber, we just printed it. Those stands can get reused up to 10-15 times. So they're extremely effective. On the right hand side is the same client that we did onto site with them. I say, do you know what's MDF? They don't know. Do you know what's PST? They don't know. Actually been standing on site with those materials probably for half their life. So it's important for when you're choosing a supplier to supply at your event that you ask a couple of key questions before you actually appoint them, and also that you look at what they're supplying and maybe just go into almost like a background check. Is what actually the truth. I think Bob alluded to something called greenwashing. There's everybody, you open up their front page of their website and they're green, but you've got to ask yourself, how green are they? In our environment, I think green has actually become just a colour. Certification is a very that type of thing. What does the material come from? There's a similar product to what we use. It's FSC approved. Doing it on site, organizers are very green up until their gates. Whatever goes on site, and you're spending the money, I think you have got the ability to say, I want a green product. None of us do it. Besides the toxic effect, is we just do a quick comparison. Is that the past was bulky, you couldn't print direct, there's pre-assembly required, slow and hard to work with. If we take our product and you do 78% lighter, it's directly printable, flat packable, fast and easy to use. So I think the comparisons just speak for themselves, looking at two different systems. Sustainable alternative. Zanita is a product that's up here. It is certified by EcoStand South Africa, so probably the only product certified. If you go globally, there Australia's got very good standards, California's got good standards. At the moment, Zanita is exported to 28 countries in the world, including the States, and it does go to California, and it's the biggest export at the moment is Australia. It's sustainable, allowing for all the spin-offs. Through all those again, because I think we're a little bit behind on time. What is and it's almost a side factor, is that when you go into site and you're speaking to someone on the exhibition stand, you want to have very good communication. That's why exhibitions and conferences are good, because you want someone and you want to be heard. If you're standing on an expo stand and there's a guy next door, competitor, and you one ear to him, you're probably getting about a 30% attention span. We've got sound deadening, so now you're taking your 20% attention span, pushed it up to 80, you've got a far, far better. So it's something you don't think about being sustainable. It has got something that's very important. I was asked earlier about structurally, it is very structural, you can hang screens on, put product on it, and all this kind of thing. And most important was it optimizes our labor practice. So if you start telling people you're going to build up shorter and you're going to get out quicker, there's a hang on, but aren't you going to use less staff? We're talking about things like job creation now, which is very important. The fact is that my guys go to the site, they get paid exactly the same salary as what they would have, but they don't go at 8 o'clock in the morning and leave the site at 3 o'clock the next morning. They're employed from 8 until 4. When they go home happy. Their families, you've actually got someone who's working and being paid for what he's paid to do. So you've got to think of it in those sort of environments. We've in fact got more staff on board than what we've ever had before. A lot of companies in South Africa actually retrench. I think it's been an issue. 8% drop off in the exhibition industry according to UFI. So that's something I can take away. This is an example of an event, it was Cape Wine, we did in 2018. It's about 4,000 square meters of sustainable expo space. We loaded it in 12 hours, all the stands we did. Traditionally that would have taken you about 3 days to build. All the guys exhibiting took their stands, use it at their vineyards. I'll show you guys a video clip later on. You're going to try. Manzanita, it's a South African innovation. It wasn't that we imported technology to the country and did it there. The flat print substrate, the guys were in printing, and they were printing onto Forex and all sorts of things, and they decided we needed something that was sustainable, and they developed a board. It's a global best. There isn't anything really that compares with in the world. In our category, we've been awarded an IFI award. 2018 we got the IFI. And generally it's seen as the world's best product. As I said, there's that comes from Sweden, and if someone tells me that I've built something that's as good as a Volvo, I'll be pretty proud about it. It doesn't really matter. I think it's going to take too long. That is part of it. Based on their size, bigger than yours, everything looks the same, and your product is the selling. And I think that's also changed in design and how people are moving in the world, where it's not the guy. So that events are judged. We've won basically all the sustainable meetings Africa every year because our stands are sustainable. And just going right back where we start out with our very complicated version of what the circular economy was at the end of 8 years, and we look at it, it actually development. We design better products, reduce the waste, we optimize life cycles, we promote reuse, we encourage recycling, and we're fitting it into our environment with expert conferencing, design thinking, effective logistics, system infrastructure. What we found, we've actually brought a lot of informal people in. So we've got guys that collect waste in our area. They come around every once a week and they collect it. Now they're coming around every day to come and collect some of our material and they take it. So instead of stealing someone's stuff and going to recycle it, copper cable, whatever it might be, they're actually collecting waste from us. Be a very inclusive and very that we started. We believe that through the
most visible sector where you can be seen what you're being doing and talking about it and actually make your outreach about those concepts really clear, because it's an industry where everyone will encounter the industry one day or the other, whether it's for a cup of tea, a normal meeting, a big meeting, a conference, it doesn't matter. So it's a huge opportunity to promote sustainability through this sector. And at the same time, people also know that if you do it prettier, better, and it becomes sustainable, so we will be the first ones being future-proof. So I'm really excited, and then because people are quite advanced. Like and I will do some intro questions, but I'll recycle it or reuse it. So how can you really be clear on who you are through your clients?
I think the area that we're in now, we need to tell clients what we're doing. We'd like to see it when it gets to the point where that's the norm and not the exception. I mean, we don't tell anyone how my shoes were made, we don't tell them how current exhibition stands were made, because we've reached a certain norm.
I think that we're in a transition phase now where we should expect that eventually sustainable development or using sustainability is the norm and not the exception. Most of our clients at the moment now are actually
doing this because you truly believe in it and you have been doing it for years and you know how to find all those people who believe exactly the same and they're different levels, but you bring this all together. I think like the mice industry in Kenya needs even more. Like where do you see you still trying to make a difference, or you're trying to, is it in government, where is it where we still need to promote, or things you really, people you want to bring together and shake up, where is that?
I think education is a big piece, and I think a lot of it beginning to understand exactly what the issues are, what are we articulating, because a lot of it is to be, I think, aggression in some areas. I don't know whether in other markets, unique and very, I don't know whether that comes across, but I think education. But then again, we all know that you have to want to be educated to actually, become familiar with the issues that we are raising. In our interaction with the private sector, we see a hunger and an eagerness to engage better. But I think I'm yet to see that hunger more coming from government offices. People will get there. What we need to do, I think, is collaborate more. And that's why for me the condition is not just a national...
It's but we need to have a few partners and kick it off. To convert the pledge which you want to do in a very practical toolkit, which you can use front end, and an implementation toolkit back end. Because that's also a lot of the times lacking still in Kenya, that people don't. Here in Kenya they will say, yeah, we don't do the plastic bottles anymore, but there is no real implementation plan behind it. If you still do use it, where do you recycle them? If you don't, how do you replace them? Are those glass bottles, where do they come from? So there's not much practical implementation behind it, or a lot of communication in front. So I think you're right, and I think that's also what you mentioned, like the collaboration on those to get this message across. We need communication, we need good questions from the question.
So you have to have knowledge.
From a psychological perspective, there has to be something. You are able to shift the paradigm, because at the end of the day, when you are measured and you are assessed in terms of the impact of the sustainability in the actual event that you undertook, of change that
I don't understand.
100 years
to live on the planet, to me.
I have a
But
question.
you don't seem to be...
Where your responsibility lies with
not sustainable as we thought, like
environment. I hope
to be a miracle mental parts of the world. And the same with pesticides.
you might have thought, oh, that's sustainable, or that's great, or that's good, or I haven't seen that before. Oh, it makes me feel good. I'm a better person. Thank you. They did something. What was it? Yeah? Are you being referred to as the millennium, or even Z? It's not nice. What's your name?
I'm Z. My name is Marcy.
Okay.
So I'll describe a funny experience that happened to me with relation to sustainability and water conservation. And apparently there are automatic taps that sense when you... I was really serious. I think Uhuru. And then I thought, now I have to throw all these away. And then I will have to buy the point where now I cannot leave. Right? If someone leaves us, I get angry. Why are you doing that? Also, if I see plastic, I'm thinking, why are we using this? So I think the only thing we can do is keep enlightening everybody. Because I think people are grasping why we shouldn't do. And I think with time we'll get there. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, and what I got out of it was, it's actually the first principle.
Body
a year and a half ago. We didn't have what we were.
Fifths of it, because that's what people consider sexy, is to have too much to eat, because usually there were people who didn't eat, and now you do a huge thing. That is, and to change that mindset takes a long professional approach. Of course, if I'm talking to someone, I'll try and communicate something, but to do it on a large scale with a label, profession, I believe, needs to be done by professionals.
Okay, yeah. Last comment, if we talk about water, we talk about communication, we talk about awareness, we talk about mindset. Serve meat differences, not at all. And the reason, and we do communicate about why, because if you don't eat meat for a week, you save 16,000, no more, you save 1 kg of beef is 16,000 liters of water. If you don't eat 6 months of shower water. So those are facts and things that might not be, they don't look sexy, but they make me feel better. I can be a flexitarian and I save a lot of water and I feel better, and we 70% of our agri land to animal, growing animals for consumption. Things can maybe make you look better and save money at the same time. It's cheap to not serve meat on a conference. It's much cheaper.
I think our engagement with ESEC, like for this conference, we opted to have 1 day that's totally meat-free. So vegetarian lunch, I think I'm just taking the cue to communicate. And to get us all knowing that we'll just be doing vegetarian for Friday. But I guess beyond that, just for me as a final thought, is the need for us to, as we rethink, begin to innovate solutions. And I often say for us sustainability advocates, for us to pass the message and get the message to implementation, we need not to just say what should not be done or what should be eliminated or reduced, but busy innovating and and testing things. In Kenya, we had this almost a tradition that if you're to walk to what would be rated, an awesome event, you'd find, just because we are, I think, producer of flowers, you find large bouquets of flowers everywhere. Such that I think you will look, even when you see our national holidays, the hallmark is how many flowers you can deliver, the cut flowers. But when you really think about it, a 2-hour event and the tons of chemical that's in the amount of chemical that we use to grow those flowers anyway. How about trying to use like natural plants that can go back to their natural habitat once the conference is done, or stuff elsewhere? And I think this is just a showcase. Things that we put in our backyard, like tires that we're not using, how can we and even for the exhibitions, like the stand that we have out there that's all repurposed wood or plants, things that can be reused for other purposes, but they also are used to project your brand. So just thinking about different ways to do different things, minimizing waste in whatever way. It's not just being minimalistic or mean, but I think it's being purposeful in the way that we execute our projects. But it will come with a lot of educating clients, certain actions have to be done. Thanks.
Is the lanyards that we're using created by the sustainability village. That is actually, it was wellness is the new goal. So you once you're done here, in case you think you might forget your land of silence, as we remember those who lost their lives during the 9/11 terrorist attacks. So kindly let's just rise to our feet. Then we will observe a few seconds of silence in honor of those who lost their lives before we close out.